loaded a ghost app. A name did come through when we did a session, as well as a few non-connected words, but we didn't think anything more than it was just chance. But it was later that night, during the tour below deck, when some interesting things took place. We were in a room below the deck that used to serve as the quarantine area. The guide was saying that this was the area of the boat where people reported hearing all sorts of gravelly whispered mumbled words into their ears. A few minutes later, the guide asked if anyone had heard anything. A woman said she thought she heard someone very near to her ear whisper. Just a second later, I turned to my husband, whom I thought was trying to scare me due to the fact that I felt and heard a mumbled voice in my ear. But my husband swears to this day that he had not made the sound. Our next stop on the tour was the boiler room. My husband and I split up to look around. There were grated planks and stairs connecting the various areas down in the boiler room. I was on a plank opposite from my husband that was at least 20 feet away, and no one was at all close to where I was. From where I was looking down, there were a small set of stairs that led to where our guide was. The guide was sharing some stories and said he was going to try to provoke the ghosts of the ship. So he asked a few questions such as, "Did you work on this ship? Were you a passenger? Did you die on this ship?" Just as the last question was asked, I heard in my ear, as clear as day, a voice that was rather deep, and it said, "All of them." Again, there was no one around me. I was startled and yet not afraid. But that was not the end of my encounter. As we were near the end of the tour and walking back up the stairs to the main floor of the ship, I was suddenly overwhelmed with the smell of old perfume. It was rather like incense. The smell was strong, and so I asked my husband, and then asked out loud if anyone had smelled the same thing. None of them had. As soon as I mentioned it, it was totally gone. Or so I thought. The next morning, when I woke up in my own bed, I could smell the perfume again. And now, from time to time, in various places, I still smell it. I get a whiff of it out of nowhere, and suddenly it's gone. Is it possible I took a ghost home with me? It was just last week, nearly a year since our stay, and I smelled the perfume at work for a brief moment. It doesn't give me a bad feeling, but it's rather interesting. And after some research, I found out that I am not the only one to leave the ship with a perfumed ghost.
Hi, Lex and Anything Ghost listeners. My name is Kirsten, but a lot of my friends call me Kenzie. So I've been listening to the show, Lex, since I started my third semester in college, which was almost a year ago. And I've been obsessed with this podcast for a long time, and so it connects with me very well, I should say. It makes me have goosebumps, makes me want to cry because I love paranormal so much and it freaks me out. So I have a lot of ghost stories happening in my house in general, but it's just not like long stories. It's just like little stories here and there that it's very unexplainable and it's pretty weird. So I will just give you a few of them. I got a lot more stories, but I share that on my YouTube channel a lot. So I'm just going to get into it. A lot of people think it's pretty weird how I can hear things. Like, I have good hearing. It's pretty weird how I'm by myself in my house a lot of times. I've been home by myself a lot since I was like 5 to 6 years old. And so sometimes I'll be downstairs in our living room, or I'll be upstairs doing my homework or doing whatever, and then I can hear my mom or my dad's voice calling my name. And I'm like, that is strange because they're not here, or they are here and I hear them call my name. And I'm like, yes. And they're like, we didn't say anything. We actually had that happen to me back in December. We had a puppy in our house for several weeks, and my mom was watching her downstairs on the couch, and my mom wanted me to get her jacket upstairs in her bedroom. So I started heading upstairs, and I get up the stairs, and I'm about to go in her room, and I hear no in my mom's voice, loud as can be. And I'm like, oh, our dog must have done something. The puppy must have done something. So I asked, what did she do? And Mom's like, what? And I said, didn't you say something? She's like, no, I didn't say anything. And so it was pretty weird. I told her, and she was just like, well, don't know what to tell you because I didn't say anything. My mom also had experience herself. Our guest bedroom, I call it the haunted room because I just don't feel safe in it a lot. We keep the door closed. Whenever it's open, I like to keep it closed because I like to think, that way the ghost can stay in the room and not come out of it, even though they can go through walls and stuff. So I just like to keep it closed. But last year, my mom hurt her back to the point where she couldn't go up our stairs into her room. So I came back from college for the weekend, and she said she was going to stay down there in the haunted room. And I was just telling her, I don't feel it's creepy, it's not safe, I don't like it. And she asked me why, and I said, I just get bad vibes from it. I don't know, I just do. And she's like, she brushed it off, thinking, my dog's just being crazy and whatnot. And so she slept downstairs with her dog, Abby, and my dog, Kylie, was sleeping upstairs or downstairs with them. And I wake up the next morning, I get downstairs, and my mom looks at me, and she is like, I think you're right. And I'm like, of course I am. About what? And she was like, I feel like you're right about that room. And I was like, okay, how so? And she told me that in the middle of the night, she woke up and she can hear clear as day almost, but she cannot explain whether it was her stomach or her dog's stomach, but she swore that in the babyest voice ever that she heard something say or something make the sound that was sounded like baby food or feed me. And it was just so weird. It was so crazy. So we just brushed that off, whatever. And then she said that again, later on in the middle of the night, she heard knocking on the walls. Well, I'm thinking, it's probably our woodpecker because here in Florida, we do have woodpeckers, but not during the winter season unless we're up north. And it was pretty weird. And of course, I would have heard the woodpecker too. And the strange thing is, we always have guests down there. We have her family, my dad's family, sometimes my friends, or some of our neighbors who watch our dogs sleep in there. And they say they don't hear anything, or they do, but they just don't want to tell us because they don't want to freak us out saying that we have a haunted house. Another story, this one is kind of a long one, and I remember this because I was home by myself. Like I said, I always am. And it was the day before my dad came home. And this is why I think our ghost that was from the guest bedroom, I say it's either another ghost or the ghost from the guest bedroom moved to the staircase. I sound so weird just saying this out loud, even though I told everyone. So in the middle of the night, it was around 11:50, I was on the phone with one of my friends, and I finished talking to him because he had to go and I had to go. And so I turned it off and I was watching some YouTube videos. and I hear like a thud. And it almost sounded like something falling off something thud, and or a body thud. Like, I could not explain it. I can't explain the thud. And I was like, that is strange. I stayed upstairs in my room for a few more minutes, and I was like, okay, the dogs need to go out one more time before it's time to go to bed and set the alarm. So I let them out, and I start the dishwasher and started cleaning the dishes. And while I'm cleaning the dishes, I hear the thud again, but it was a lot fainter, and I was just like, my heart was beating, and I was like, what in the world? So I go into our front room to see if there's anything out there on our porch. I didn't see anything. I come back into the kitchen, and I kind of realized it was the dishwasher making noise. I was just like, okay, that's just the dishwasher. I don't think anything of it. So I finished taking care of the dishes, and I called the dogs in, and I set the alarm, and we start heading up for bed. And this is where the craziness starts. So my mom's dog, Abby, whenever my mom's not around, she'll watch over me and protect me. And so she came in towards the bathroom with me, and I look at her, and I'm like, you're going to protect me, right? You're going to protect me from those monsters, right? From those ghosts and demons, right? And she looked at me like, yeah, sure, whatever. So I get into the bathroom, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think we heard some noises. And it also sounded like someone was coming up the stairs. I'm like wondering, is someone in our house? And the thing is, it's not me who hears this voice or this noise. Abby is also looking at her staircase. And I know what you're thinking, oh, it could be the other dog coming up. But Kylie, my dog, was already on the other side looking at me, and she couldn't have gone up those stairs. And she has light pulse, and we can hear it when she's coming up the stairs. And it's just pretty weird, and we just can't explain it, and it freaked me out. And even in the middle of the night, I can hear some noises like a groan or a sigh. And it's just, oh my word. And it's always when I'm by myself. I told my parents, and they're just like, oh, you're just imagining things. And it's not even when they're not home. It's also when they're home. This last story is just, it's a little creepy, and it's just a little tiny little story. One night, my parents were upstairs in their room, and I stayed downstairs, and we have a hallway, and it's all tile. All that is in our hallway is the bathroom, the guest bedroom, and our closet that just holds our winter coats and all of our Christmas stuff. And then we have a big office, we call it the Florida room, and it has a lot of windows and two French glass doors, and we usually have them open. Sometimes during the wintertime we have them closed, just depending on how cold the air is. And so I'm laying on the couch, and it's facing, and I'm looking directly at the glass windows in the office. And I was just on my phone looking at pictures from Instagram, and I look up at our office, and I could have swore in the doorway of our hallway was like a tall figure, and I could see its head. And then the second I looked at it, its head just like either falls backwards or cracks to the side or something, or tilts to the side to where it's like gone, to where he's like the headless person. I swore I got chills, and it was just creepy, and I could not, and I was like, no. I haven't told anyone much of that story because it's just weird, and again, it could be a figure of my imagination, but I want to know what you guys think, because I swear our house is infested with ghosts or demons, because we've had a couple of snakes in our house, and we know they're part of the devil. And my parents, they're like, no, it can't be the ghost. And the thing is, guys, no one has ever died in our house before. Everyone who's lived in our house has lived long, happy lives, and they move on to another home. So we think that it's a ghost attached to one of our furniture. So, yeah, just want to let you know what's going on. Let you guys tell you that I'm insane or I'm not insane. Anyways, guys, those are my stories. I have a lot more, but those are just like the main ones that stick into my head. So, yeah, hope you guys have a great day. Hope I get to hear this on one of your podcast legs. Anyways, guys, take care.
Count Chocula
And Frankenberry.
coming your way.
How about a
monster
for breakfast
today?
Frankenberry has strawberry-flavored marshmallows.
And Count Chocula has chocolatey marshmallows.
Thought of this called
Nutritious breakfast.
Something free lurks in Monster cereal. Will it make you handsome, charming? Specially marked boxes of Monster cereals know. Inside one of these free wax lips, fangs, or mustaches, they just uncover the real you.
The next story is from Miguel in El Paso, Texas. Scary voice in my earphones. I work as a computer programmer, which keeps me keen and aware all the time at work, thinking on solutions and surfing through documentation and systems. But the last weeks have been heavy with documentation efforts and personal lack of continued early sleep since my kids have been ill. Today, I was not able to have my early morning coffee, and of course I was feeling drowsy most of the morning. I was listening to a sports podcast on my cell phone and earphones. I do this all the time, given that I work at a computer all day long and keep to myself most of the day. When I get a call or browse a web page with the sound on my phone, the podcast or music I am listening to will stop, and I will have to re-enter the music app to restart it. Due to the lack of coffee and motivation, I blinked, tired, and left my eyes closed for a little bit. But I heard a woman's voice say angrily, slowly, and bitterly, "Get out of my house!" I opened my eyes, startled. But the sport podcast I was listening to had fully stopped. I checked if I had unintentionally clicked my phone and played another podcast, but of course, not since everything was silent and had stopped after the voice. Maybe some strange program was executing, something that I had inadvertently installed. But I keep my phone with a minimum of apps. But I checked and nothing was opened or installed. Finally, maybe I had a virus on my phone. But I also checked that, and no. I'm still wondering what had happened. A story from Amanda in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Shadow people in the bedroom. I grew up in a cul-de-sac in Hummelstown, Pennsylvania. I've had many encounters with the paranormal, as have many of the people in my family. Perhaps we ourselves are haunted, or maybe it's just the area we live in. Either way, most of the folks in my family have spent their lives feeling like they have a foot in this world and a foot in another. What I'm going to share with you today is the first experience I myself ever had. I was about 5 years old at the time, and some of the details are fuzzy. But I remember that I was in trouble for something. I don't remember what I did, but the usual punishment when I acted out was to be sent to bed for a short nap. I was lying in bed. It was bright outside. I can only assume it was probably afternoon, so the light coming in through the blinds was comforting and warm. As a result, I quickly started to drift off to sleep. I don't know how much time had passed, only that the light suddenly vanished and my room was dark. It was my mother's habit to only allow my nap to last no more than an hour, so it was unlikely that I had slept from afternoon to evening. At seeing the darkness, I sat up in bed. I remember feeling very afraid. I began breathing fast and trembling. I got out of my bed to make my way toward the bedroom door to get out of there when I saw 3 figures standing at the end of my bed. They were opaque. I couldn't make out any kind of clothing or anything on them. I only saw that they were shaped like very tall people. Even though I couldn't make out features, I knew they were staring at me. Then, one of them came toward me very quickly. I screamed, and shortly afterward, my bedroom door burst open. My mother came running in. She must have been walking by when I screamed. I told her what had happened, and she had the house blessed. That wasn't the first or the last time I saw shadow people.
I have a ghost story for the show, and I just call it the Shadow Giant. And, well, me and Judah, we're hiking in the woods. And then, we were hiking in the woods, we saw this huge shadow person. It was like 20 feet tall. And it didn't do anything, it just stared at us. Then just went on. After a few feet, poof, just vanished. Well, that's my story. So, I hope it gets in.
And that was a story from Jolie's son, Jack, in Seattle, Washington. And now a story from Jolie.
Hello, everyone with Anything Ghost. Hi, Lex Wall. I am Jolie. I live in Seattle, and I would like to share a story that I have referred to as my coming-of-age ghost story. And it begins in the summer of 1997. I had just graduated high school, and I was on my first kind of road trip by myself to visit a friend who already had moved out of her parents' place and got a job. And she lived about an hour and a half drive away down a 2-lane highway, a small town. She moved to a very, very small town. And I just thought I'd make an adventure of it and stay with her for the weekend. Let's see. Unfortunately, on the drive over, the radiator in my car exploded, so I also unexpectedly had my first hitchhiking experience. I prefer that to be my last, but everything turned out well. It just meant that I was stuck in this small town while I waited for my car to get fixed a little bit longer than I wanted to. Already not off to a super great start. Right when I arrived at my friend's house, we'll call her Elle, she's getting dressed. She's frantically running around, and she apologizes because she has to go to work. Suddenly she got called in, which means I was left alone in her place for the next 5 hours. Her place being a pretty huge 3-bedroom farmhouse in town, but it was massive for what I was expecting her to have. I'm like, what am I going to do rumbling around in this big old house? Well, I bade her farewell, and I'd see her in a few hours, and decided to busy myself by just picking up and organizing and cleaning the kitchen. And I will say that she liked to collect a lot of things, and kind of built little piles everywhere. So I thought, well, I'll just tidy this up for her. For about the first couple hours, as I was wandering around the house, just kind of exploring all the bedrooms upstairs, which were untouched in every way, not a stick of furniture. The house was so big that she only lived in the living room and the kitchen on the main floor. Never went upstairs. And for the summer months, that kind of worked out well. When I did walk upstairs, it was pretty stifling hot. So staying downstairs was going to be just fine for me. And as I began to kind of wander around, I had a very distinct feeling that I had never experienced before. And it was, now looking back, the feeling of actually kind of being watched, as if I wasn't the only one in the house. I wandered downstairs to the basement where it started getting more pronounced, the feeling. So in typical scared fashion, I ran back up the stairs from the basement as fast as I could, closed the door behind me, and decided not to go down there again. About that time, I was in the kitchen picking things up, and I could have swore I heard water running from the bathroom, as if something was running in the tub. Somebody was drawing a bath. And I turned my head over to the bathroom, which was accessible through the kitchen, and the door was open, and it was kind of silent. Well, it was silent. There was obviously nobody in there, but I turned back around to the kitchen, put plates away, and I get this distinct, I swear I hear like kids playing in a bathtub, water running, while at the same time I hear like this woman kind of shouting at the top of her lungs. And it's not happening outside of the house. I swear I hear it in the house. And it's only when I'm kind of not paying attention that I seem to notice, I'm focused on another project, that I hear this sound. And when I turn to look at the bathroom, it's just kind of not there. It's obvious that it's empty. Never having experienced something quite like that before, I didn't even know how to respond to it, except for maybe my imagination is running wild. Looking back now as an adult, it does seem like I was tapping into a little piece of history of the house somehow, with your third eye, if you will, or your third ear. I was hearing a reflection of the history of the place. Moving forward, as it's getting pretty close to when my friend Elle is gonna be arriving home, and things are looking pretty good in the house. So I decide to do my last sweep of cleaning and organizing in her living room, which was the biggest mess. But and it's super hot out, so I'm wearing shorts and a tank top, and I'm sweating as I'm bending down, picking up piles of this and moving it over here and there. And I get to like a lazy boy chair in the living room. She had a couple. She had, oddly, a couple couches and lazy boys in this living room. And it was one in particular I was bending down next to pick up a pile of paper. And 5 distinct, very, very cold fingers went up my leg in the back. Like it was, no doubt about it, somebody's very cold hands just went up my leg. And I turned around, and looked at the chair, and no one was there, but I was probably beyond scared. I knew that I wasn't crazy. I knew exactly what I had felt, and still my eyes are telling me, giving me no explanation. That's when I said, that's it, I'm out. I'm going to sit on the porch and wait for her to come home. Yeah, she comes home, thankfully, not too much later, but I'm still pretty shook up about this. And I tell her kind of frantically what happened, and she starts laughing, which is my last thing I was expecting her to do. And I'm like, I'm not joking, I'm not messing with you. There's somebody touched me, and she's like, show me where you were at. We walk into the house, I point to the chair in question, and she starts laughing some more. I'm like, it's not funny. I'm really, really bothered by this. And she says, Jolie, where do you think I get all my furniture from? And I'm like, I have no idea. Where did you get your furniture from? She's like, Jolie, I work in a nursing home. I get this furniture when they pass away. When people pass away. And it's still, my mind is not even really processing this. She's like, the man who used to sit in that chair all the time routinely pinched the nurses' butts. He was like the ladies a little bit too much, if you will. And he had passed away some months earlier. And so I'm like, are you telling me that I just got felt up by a ghost? And she's like, yep. Moving along. No, nothing to be too alarmed here. What a funny story. That's how her reaction is. And I am dumbfounded. I still am after all these years. So after a couple nights, just terrible night's sleep, and never being comfortable near that chair ever again, even though I had to actually sleep next to it, there was no beds in the house. And we decide one late night, I think it was like Saturday at this point, Saturday night, and it was such a beautiful, warm evening, we decided we were going to go down to the small lake in town, not too far from her place, and float on some inner tubes. It's midnight, no big deal, it'll be just fun. Or we can just sit on the dock and talk. So we roll our gigantic inner tubes down the street, about 11:30 at night, and we get down to the dock. And there were two docks, actually. One that was no longer in use because it was falling apart. So obviously we sit on the brand new one, out at the very edge with our feet dangling over. And it was a really beautiful night. And we weren't talking about anything in particular, but probably there for like a half hour at this point. And I just suddenly kind of turned my head to the left to the old dock. And I saw two things in the water. And I call them things, but they distinctly had a head, shoulders, arms, torso. There's no face, no hair. And they were radiant white light, but gave off no shine or reflection. They were just very bright. And they were standing in the water next to the old dock, up to their waist in water. And I'm thinking, I'm like, so some weird pillars. Why did I not even, I'm just trying to rationalize again, what in the world am I looking at? It feels and appears as if two completely white entities, humanoid entities, are standing in the water up to their waist, staring at us. I see no face. There's no, this is in fact one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. So I kind of get my friend's attention. I'm like, hey, look at that. What is that over there? And they're probably, I don't know, 100 yards. I mean, they're not that far. But, and they're not moving. They're just standing there. And she's like, what things? I'm like, those things in the water right there. I don't see what you're talking about, she says. And I'm like, you've got to stop messing with me. They're right there. And there's two of them. They look like white entities just standing in this water, kind of staring at us. How can you not see them? They're right there. And she's like, Jolie, I do not see anything. I do not see anything over there. There's nothing over there. And at this point, all I could do, my only response actually was to kind of start crying, because I know that she's honest, that she doesn't see them, but what in the world am I seeing? Why am I seeing this? And I get very frustrated, and she gets really sad, not even angry. She's like, I don't know how to help you. I don't know what's going on. I don't see what you're talking about, making just this frustration circle even more confusing and shocking and alarming, that I tell her I'm just going to go back to the house. I can't even handle this. Now, what I did find out, I think a day or two later, shortly about the time that my car was fixed and I was ready to go home, I did ask her about that lake and why there was a very particular boat in that lake, docked to the other side of the shore. I'd never seen anything quite like this boat before, and I grew up along the Missouri River, so we see a lot of speedboats. But this was not a speedboat, it was something very different. And she tells me, I have yet to look up if this is ever correct terminology, but she tells me they call it the scraper. And I'm like, the scraper? Yeah, they clean up the bottom floor of the lake, and just they find bodies if somebody's suspected of drowning. Scraper. I'm like, are you kidding me? So that is the terminology she gave it. Apparently in the small town of 1,000 people, That is how it's commonly known as. And sadly, this boat has been used a good couple times for people. And she tells me of a story about a teenage boy that did, in fact, commit suicide by drowning in the lake. And the father, so distraught, a short time later, did the same. 2 people that she knows of that drowned in the lake. And it just got me thinking about these 2 beings that I saw in the lake, kind of standing side by side, all radiant white, but not reflecting anything. Just standing there, staring at us. I never went back to that town to visit my friend. I've only seen her actually once because their lives went in different directions. But we were even talking on Facebook Messenger recently about that weekend and how it's one that I certainly will never forget. And it really weekends, 4 days. But that's my coming of age story, my first experience of kind of a paranormal, a direct impact on my life, both psychically with the bathroom experience, with being touched by this ghost and lazy boy, and then seeing these 2 there. I mean, one word that could describe it is almost angelic, just standing there watching. There was definitely no threat from them, but they scared me because I saw them and she didn't see them. So that is my story. I thank you very much, everyone, for listening. And as always, thank you for all you do, Lex, and take care.
If you enjoyed the Anything Goes show and you want to listen to the complete library going back to January of 2006, it's many stories, then you need to join the Anything Goes VIP group. Check it out. Go to www.anythingghost.com and then go to Join the VIP Group tab for more information about the Anything Ghost VIP group, the complete archives of Anything Ghost. And here's a story from Lisa in the UK. The Flying Basket. I was working at a flat in a huge house in Harrogate, North Yorkshire today. I've worked at the place weekly for a long time. While there, I've never felt or heard anything out of the ordinary. However, today I opened the door to the ensuite bathroom, and a basket flew across the room, hit the shower door, then fell to the floor. The room has no windows, and yet the basket flew across the room at eye level with me. I'm 5'2". The weird thing is that I was actually not scared. I think I just couldn't process what I had seen at first. I texted the flat owner, "Something really weird just happened here." The owner rang me straight back. I told him what had happened, and I sent him a photo of where the basket had landed. Neither of us could explain it. After a while, I even tried asking the ghost, out loud, to move the basket again if anybody was there. I called out twice, but the basket didn't move. I put the basket where it had been in the room and opened the door really quickly to see if it could create a draft that would move the basket, but it didn't move a millimeter. I've thought of every scenario possible, but the fact is, the basket just flew from one side of the room to the other. I've always thought that if I ever saw anything weird in a house that I worked at, I'd be out of there like a shot and never return. But I'm actually just intrigued. I keep racking my brain for an explanation. I'll be working there every Friday, so if anything else happens, I'll keep you all posted. And here's a recording from Rod in California. And Rod is the one who helped with Brinke's introduction in the beginning, and as well as his introduction. And this is another Hollywood ghost tour.
Hi Lex, it's Rod here again, and today I have a few more little stories about haunted Hollywood. Hollywood, the movie factory, as Christopher Lee once observed, is not really a specific city or geographic location. There is a specific city called Hollywood, but really many of the outlying towns in the Los Angeles area can be said to be part of the Hollywood community, if movie work is done there. And in some ways, you could also say Hollywood is a state of mind. If we took a ghost tour of Hollywood, it should really start at a place I almost forgot until just a few days ago when someone reminded me. The location is an old disused nightclub from the 70s on Sunset Boulevard, way east, about where Sunset intersects with the city of Silver Lake. A long time ago, in 1987, that nightclub building was rented by filmmaker Andy Milligan, who made extremely low-budget horror films, the cheapest possible. And in this empty bar, which I heard had been a local hotspot in the early 70s, here Milligan had set up a makeshift studio where little sets were built and where the film went through part of the editing process. The building was watched over by a security guard fellow named Wayne. Wayne said the studio was haunted by something that appeared really late at night. Around 1 in the morning or 2 o'clock is when it would show up, he said. And it was like a glowing cloud of vapor or mist that would appear in a corner near the front door, and it would slowly move along the wall towards the next corner, where it would stop and pause for a moment, and then it would continue on along the wall to the next corner, where it would pause and stop, and so on. And it would complete a circuit of the room this way, according to Wayne. And the way he talked about it, it showed up fairly regularly, so I asked him if there was a chance I might be able to see this thing, and this suggestion made Wayne very nervous almost instantly. He started shifting on his feet and looking down at the floor, and he said he didn't think it was a good idea because Andy doesn't like him to talk about the ghost thing. So this was a little disappointing to me, but it was validating too, because it was proof in a way. He wouldn't have gotten nervous if Andy hadn't talked to him and told him not to talk about the ghost. And that conversation wouldn't have happened if there wasn't anything to talk about. So I was satisfied at least that there was something to the story. I just didn't get a chance to see what that thing was. We filmed in that building for a couple of weeks, and nothing out of the ordinary happened, maybe because we were working during the day, and the ghost only came out at night, according to Wayne. Now, we'll see, as a lot of people know, that security guards, especially nighttime guards, see things. Now, this makes perfect sense because they spend a great deal of time watching over remote and lonely locations. So if something odd happens in one of these places, they are the people who are most likely to see it. Security guards at Universal Studios in Universal City, just next door to North Hollywood, have had their run-ins with what might be a ghost. Stage 28 on the studio lot was home to the Paris Opera House set, which was built in 1924 for the Lon Chaney silent film Phantom of the Opera, a classic. The gigantic set was used in dozens of movies over the decades, but was slowly crumbling, and the studio demolished it and the building where it was housed in 2014. In and around the Stage 28 area, a caped specter is sometimes seen, and typically by security guards in the nighttime hours. Some believe it is the spirit of actor Lon Chaney himself, but nobody knows. On more than one occasion, when the figure is approached, it vanishes into thin air. Sometimes disembodied laughter or chuckling can be heard in the area immediately after a sighting. If we go westward to Tarzana, a city that actually was named after Tarzan, since Edgar Rice Burroughs used to live in the area, In Tarzana, there is the empty nursing home that was being rented to a film company in the early 90s for use as a filming location. A friend of mine named Jim got a job there for a couple of weeks to help out another security guard who had asked for assistance due to the size of the building. But, as it turned out, that wasn't really the reason he had asked for help. The real problem was that there was an unseen presence in the building that would make noise late at night, and spending nights alone there had unnerved the first security guard completely. He needed company because he was scared. Jim showed up and he heard the unexplainable noises the first night he was there, and it was then he realized he would have to spend the next 2 weeks of night times in this creepy building. Now, a few miles away, on the other side of the hill, in the city of Hollywood proper, is the Comedy Store on Sunset Boulevard. The building was originally the site of Ciro's, a very classy restaurant that was popular with movie stars and gangsters alike, decades ago. A whole array of weird phenomena supposedly happened there, including disembodied footsteps on the wooden staircases and voices calling the names of the employees from the dark hallways at night. Near the Comedy Store is the intersection of Hollywood Boulevard and Sierra Bonita Street. It looks like a normal street corner, but it's not. This corner has a long reputation of being haunted, and this is probably because the street existed long ago in the Old West days, before the film industry was even created. That might be the reason why the ghosts people see here are of the antiquated variety. Cowboys on horseback and covered wagons are seen here, although I don't think there have been reports of these for a few years, so maybe the ghosts went on a vacation. Now, if you take a right turn on Laurel Canyon and go up north into the hills, you'll find yourself in one of the strangest parts of Hollywood. Laurel Canyon is a winding, narrow, dangerous road that goes up into the Hollywood Hills, right to the top where Mulholland Drive is, and then down into the North Hollywood area. Laurel Canyon is haunted by all kinds of stuff, including Old West apparitions like the ones seen on Sierra Bonita Street. But in this case, the terrain itself is very dangerous. Whether you're going up the hill or down the hill, it's very easy to go too fast. And the road is snake-like, a natural design formed by erosion. It really is a narrow canyon, and you have to be careful driving it. Now, the intersection of Laurel Canyon and Lookout Mountain, about halfway up, is where most of the reported ghosts are seen. And coincidentally, there is a small general store there, the only store of its type on Laurel Canyon in the hills, and that was used as a location for a scene in a famous ghost movie. That film would be John Carpenter's The Fog from 1979. They used the store to film one of the opening scenes featuring poltergeist-type phenomena and the shaking of bottles inside a refrigerator. It's a pretty creepy scene. You can visit that general store and see the refrigerator cases that were used in the film. You can even buy a drink there. And very near Lookout Mountain is the staircase that leads up to Houdini's mansion. Now, currently, what remains of the legendary magician's estate is being used as a luxury resort and can be rented for special events. The stone steps leading up the hill have been repaired and restored, but retain much of their century-old charm. Houdini's ghost hasn't been seen around his estate, as far as I hear, but that doesn't mean he won't decide to show up at some point. Thanks a lot, Lex. Your show is awesome.
An Anything Ghost flashback from episode number 231. Jay in Florida. The Loop.
Okay, so this is the telling of an event that happened to me when I was 13 years old. And if anyone has any knowledge on the subject and can even begin to explain what happened to me, I would greatly appreciate it. So when I was much younger, a lot of the time on the weekends, I would be home alone. My younger sibling would usually be staying the night with one of his friends or one of our cousins. And my mother and father, they would usually be partying next door with the neighbors. They were very social. So one weekend in particular, I was playing some Sega Genesis, and I decided, you know what, I'm finna get in the shower. So while I'm in the shower, everything seems to be going pretty smoothly, when all of a sudden, the shower curtain just jerks back. And I'm standing face to face with a strange man that I don't know. I don't know him at all. Involuntarily, my body kind of jerks in the direction of what's going on, and I slip and I fall. When I slipped and I fell, the back of my head hit the back of the tub, and I winced because it hurt pretty bad. After I recovered from wincing, I looked toward the man to see if he was still there, and he was gone. Not a trace of him in sight. So I sat there for a couple of seconds, kind of froze, and I jumped up out of the tub, and I ran toward the bathroom door, and I locked it. My heart's pounding, I'm breathing hard, I'm scared, I'm shaking, and I'm trying to figure out what am I going to do next, because the bathroom door is pretty flimsy. It's not as if it's like a front door or a back door. It can be easily kicked in. I mean, it's just not a lot between me and him, I'm thinking at the time. So I figured that I had to figure something out. I couldn't just stay in the bathroom because in my mind, it would be easy for him to get me. I don't know if like I said, I don't know if he's there to rob the place or kill me or what. So I get dressed, and I decide that the best course of action would be for me to make a beeline straight for the front door, which is about roughly 20 feet away from the bathroom. I figured that I could make it. I mean, I was a pretty swift child. I played sports and things. I figured, I was confident that I can make it. So now I'm going to do this, and I make a beeline toward the door, which was kind of risky because we didn't keep a lot of lights on in the house, only the lights that we needed, and the light over the top of the stove, so it was kind of dim, but it was dark in the house. Anyway, so I make the beeline toward the door, and I get to the door, and I'm out. Run across the street to the neighbor's house, and I begin to, I run straight through the door. I don't knock on it. I just go straight through the door, and I run to my mom. I'm bent over. I'm breathing hard. She's trying to figure out what's happening to me. So after I catch my breath, I explain to her what happened, and she jumps up. She runs to where my father's at, and she tells him what happens, and the neighbor grabs his gun, and they start walking toward the house. So my mom's screaming, "Do you want me to call the police?" And he's like, "No, just let me go check this out. I can handle this." Yada, yada, yada. So about 5 minutes later or 10 minutes later, they come back and they say that there's no one in the house and they can see basically they're saying that they can see no evidence of a break-in. And everything seems exactly as it should be in the house. We go home that night, and we all huddle up in the same room, in their room, and we sleep. And the last thing I remember is my dad kind of sitting up in the chair in the room and just kind of keeping watch. Nothing happens after that. I mean, everything just goes back to being normal. Like, I'm weirded out, but nothing happens. Just life just kind of goes on. A couple of years later, I joined the Navy, and I do a bit of traveling and this, that, and the third, and I get out. So now I'm around the age of 22, and I come back home. I have moved roughly about an hour and a half away from where my parents lived at, but I wanted to come home for the 4th of July to visit them. Usually on the 4th of July, if I'm there, we'll all go down to the bay and watch the fireworks, because the bay is about 3 blocks away from where my parents' house at. So we just kind of walked there all together and we watched the fireworks. But that day, when I woke up that morning, I just didn't feel well. It's like I couldn't get my bearings. I was nauseous. I had a bad headache, a terrible headache, and I just didn't feel well. So it became time. It was right before dusk. It became time for us to get ready to walk down to the bay, and my mom asked me if I was gonna go, and I told her no. I just don't feel well. I'm not gonna be able to make it. I apologize because I know she really wanted me to be there. She told me not to worry about it. They were gonna go anyways, and they would be back shortly. So I'm like, okay, cool, that's fine. So I was, thinking, take some Tylenol, maybe watch some TV, whatever. So then I was like, well, you know what? I'm just going to get in the shower because maybe if I take me a hot shower, I'll feel better. Walk into the bathroom, put everything down, and I pull back the curtain, the shower curtain. And this is when things get really weird. When I pull back the shower curtain, I see myself in the shower. I see my younger self standing in the shower, and we're looking at each other face to face. And I'm shocked, and I know what's happening. Like, I immediately remember it from the other side. So I know what's happening, but I'm scared anyways because my mind cannot make sense of what's happening. It's like my mind cannot process it properly. So I see myself, my younger self, fall in the tub and hit his head, and I hit my head. I don't even know how to word it right. But anyways, I start backing up because at this point, I'm just trying to get away. I can't, I'm scared. I don't know what's happening. I'm trying to get away from what's happening. So as I'm backing away, I trip and fall. I roll over and I crawl toward the bathroom door. I open it up and I crawl out the bathroom and shut it behind me. I'm sitting there on my hands and knees, breathing hard, trying to figure out what just happened. What is this? Like, this is crazy. This is crazy. I get up, I kind of walk around, I pace for a couple of minutes, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to go back in the bathroom. So what I do is I like a coward. What I do is I open the bathroom door, but I open it slowly, and I'm standing behind the wall, and I kind of peek my head around the corner to see what's going on in there. Like, what? I don't know what I'm going to see. I don't know if I'm going to see a ghost or an alien. I don't know what I'm going to see at this point. It's just crazy. So I open the door, I peek my head around the corner, and nothing's in the shower. So I walk in the bathroom, and I walk toward the shower, and I want to examine the shower and see what's going on. And the shower is dry, as if no one was ever in there. And I distinctly remember seeing my younger self in the shower, and the water's running, of course, right? And I also remember that when I was standing face to face with myself, that there was no sound. Even though the water was running, and I see it running, and I see the water hitting myself, I can hear nothing. It's as silent as if nothing's happening. I sit there for a couple of seconds, and then I walk back out into the living room. I sit there and I wait for my parents to come home. And I explain to them everything that happened, and they're just kind of vexed, and they don't understand what's happening. They can't really, but they remember. But I'm explaining to them. I'm like, you remember when, way back when I saw the man in the shower, Mom? It wasn't the man. It was me. It was me. It just happened, and I think I just seen it from the other side. I think I ran into myself. So of course she's kind of laughing, and she's asking me stuff like, "What are you smoking, son?" and all that stuff. But my father, he's like, "Well, maybe you got caught in a time loop." And I'm like, "Well, I don't even know what that means, Pops." Well, anyways, that's the event. That's what happened to me, and like I said, I can't explain it, or I've never heard anything quite like it before. So it's kind of crazy, but I hope you guys enjoy it. Take care.
And that's it for Anything Goes show number 247. If you have a story you want to share, send it to lex@anythingghost.com or go to the website and fill out the form there at anythingghost.com. And for everything Anything Ghost, go to anythingghost.com. Don't forget about the Anything Ghost VIP group. You can get the complete archives of Anything Ghost with a one-time